All right, let's dive into this review of Under the Skin.
Yeah.
A 2014 sci-fi film with Scarlett Johansson.
Okay.
It sounds like, from what I'm reading here, it's going to be pretty interesting.
It sounds like a very interesting film. It seems to be one of those films that, yeah, it's not exactly what it seems.
Yeah, so the basic premise is pretty straightforward.
Yeah. It is a simple premise.
An alien seductress in Scotland is preying on men.
Yeah.
But the review hints that there's a lot more to it than that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like,
there's always more than meets the eye with these types of films, right?
Yeah, it mentions something about a haunting and minimalist exploration of alienation and identity.
Right.
And I got to say that really piqued my interest.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound like your typical alien invasion movie, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. One of the first things I noticed in the review was that it kind of does away with the traditional way of telling a story. Yeah, it doesn't rely on, a typical plot or explaining everything to the audience.
So how does it tell the story then?
Well, it's more like a dream.
Okay.
It uses visuals and these kind of subtle hints to get the story across.
I'm not sure I totally understand.
Yeah.
So what does that even mean? Like doing away with traditional storytelling.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Like, I need a little bit more.
Most films are like a puzzle where each scene fits together.
Okay.
To give you the full picture, right?
Yeah.
But Under the Skin, it's more like an abstract painting.
Okay.
You see all these striking images and these weird moments.
Right.
But it's up to you to connect the dots.
Yeah.
And find your own meaning.
Wow. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds like the audience has to participate rather than just watch passively.
Exactly, yeah.
And speaking of captivating, the review raves about Scarlett Johansson's performance as the alien.
Oh, yeah.
And it even calls it career-defining.
It seems like she delivers a performance that is just captivating and unsettling at the same time.
Yeah, and how does she do that?
Well, the review points out this contrast between her initial cold and detached demeanor, almost robotic, and these subtle shifts as she begins to experience human emotions.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, that's a really interesting point.
Right.
Because some might say that a sci-fi film needs, flashy special effects and all the action sequences to be captivating.
Yeah, for sure.
But this film seems to pull it off without relying on those elements.
And that's exactly where Johansson's performance becomes key.
Right.
She has to convey so much with just her expressions and body language.
Yeah.
And according to this review, she totally nails it.
Wow.
And it's through those subtle cues that the audience connects with her character.
Yeah.
Even though she's playing this otherworldly being.
So it's less about spectacle and more about the nuances of her performance. I'm guessing that the visual style of the film and the sound design also play a huge part in creating this immersive experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the reviewer describes the cinematography as this stunning blend of stark realism and surreal, dreamlike sequences.
Yeah.
Contrasting the gritty backdrop of Scotland with these otherworldly, almost liquid-like environments.
Right.
There's like this really interesting juxtaposition of the ordinary and the extraordinary
exactly.
that really jumps out from the review.
Yeah.
Then there's the score by Micah Levi.
Oh, yeah.
Which is described as haunting.
Yes, very haunting.
And I'm guessing that the music adds another layer of unease to the whole film.
Yeah, the music in this film, it's not your typical score.
Oh, okay.
It's more than just eerie.
Right.
Levi uses these dissonant strings and these kind of warped electronic textures. It's the kind of music that gets under your skin and makes you feel like something isn't quite right.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And it keeps you on edge throughout the entire film.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like the music is almost another character.
Yeah, definitely.
Adding to the film's unsettling atmosphere.
Exactly.
It's interesting that the review also mentions these moments of oppressive silence.
Right.
Now, I'm curious, how does that play into the overall sound design?
Well, one of the things that's really brilliant about the sound design in this film is that those moments of silence, they're not just empty space. Yeah. It's like they actually make the tension even higher.
Okay.
It makes you lean in, like you're waiting for something to happen.
Right.
It's almost as if the silence itself is a character that's amplifying the alien's detachment from the world around her.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we, the audience, are experiencing that disconnect along with her.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like we're being pulled into this unsettling space where the rules of reality no longer apply.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and that unsettling feeling is further enhanced by Jonathan Glazer's direction. You know, he uses non-actors and unscripted interactions.
Wow. And how does that impact the film's realism?
Well, imagine watching a scene.
Okay.
And you don't know if the person you're seeing is actually an actor.
Right.
Or just somebody Glazer pulled off the street.
I see.
You know, it makes you question what's real and what's not.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
It adds this raw, unpredictable element to the film that makes it feel more authentic, even though you know it's a fictional story.
Okay, so that ties into these larger themes then of identity.
Right.
And what it really means to be human.
Exactly.
It sounds like the film doesn't offer easy answers.
No, not at all.
It throws these questions back at us.
Yeah.
And makes us confront our own assumptions about ourselves and the world.
Yeah.
The review mentions that the film has received some criticism.
Right.
Because it's abstract and slow-paced.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Some viewers might find it a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
Especially those who are expecting a more traditional sci-fi experience.
Right.
But for those who are willing to embrace the film's unconventional style, it seems to offer a really rewarding experience.
Oh, definitely.
It's like the film is asking us to slow down and pay attention.
Yeah.
And really engage with it.
Exactly.
On a much deeper level.
Right.
And when we do that, we're rewarded with these incredible visual moments, haunting music, and a performance from Scarlett Johansson that really gets under your skin.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
The film requires patience.
Yeah.
An open mind.
Right.
But it really rewards those who are willing to go on the journey with it.
Absolutely.
So the review gives it a solid 8.5 out of 10.
Right. That's a good score.
And calls it a haunting, visually stunning, and thematically rich sci-fi film that lingers in the mind.
Yeah.
What do you think are the key elements that contribute to such a strong rating?
Well, I think everything we've talked about plays a part.
Right.
You know, Scarlett Johansson's performance,
Yeah.
Michael Levi's score,
Yeah.
Jonathan Glazer's bold direction, and that striking visual style.
Right.
But what really sets it apart, I think, is its ability to linger in the mind.
Yeah.
It really sparks conversations and makes you question your own humanity.
It's a film that stays with you long after you've seen it, right?
Yes, definitely.
And the review highlights Johansson's performance as being really crucial to grounding the film's abstract themes.
Right.
Could you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, so imagine trying to portray an alien who's basically experiencing humanity for the first time.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's a role that requires incredible subtlety and nuance. And, you know, Johansson manages to convey a whole range of emotions just with a look, a slight gesture, you know.
Okay.
And as her character evolves, we start to see these little glimmers of vulnerability and even empathy, which are qualities we usually associate with being human.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So even though she's playing this otherworldly being, her performance manages to tap into something that's very relatable.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And the cinematography plays a huge role in creating this immersive experience, right?
Absolutely.
The review even uses the word masterpiece to describe it and what makes it so special.
Well, imagine these two contrasting worlds colliding.
Okay.
You have the gritty, everyday reality of Scotland and the alien's dark, liquid-like void.
Okay.
And the cinematographer, Daniel Landon, uses these long takes and a muted color palette to create this sense of realism in the human world. Yeah.
While the scenes within the void are more abstract and dreamlike.
Okay.
Almost like watching a moving painting.
It's like we're being pulled into two different dimensions.
Exactly.
And then there's the score, which adds yet another layer to this sensory experience.
Yeah, the score.
Yeah.
It's not just background music. It's an integral part of the storytelling.
Okay.
You know, those dissonant strings and eerie electronic textures create this atmosphere of constant unease.
Yeah.
And the moments of silence that we mentioned earlier add to the tension and suspense.
And it's interesting how the score reflects the alien's perspective.
Right.
It's like we're hearing the world through her ears.
Yeah.
Experiencing her confusion and disorientation.
That's a great observation.
So the music doesn't always follow traditional melodic structures.
Right.
It's often fragmented and unpredictable.
Yeah, which is kind of like the alien's own fragmented understanding of the world.
So it's like the music itself is another character.
One that's constantly shifting and evolving.
Precisely.
Along with the alien.
And that's what makes the score so effective.
Right.
It's not telling us how to feel. It's inviting us to experience the film on a deeper, more visceral level.
And that's something that the director, Jonathan Glazer, seems to be very good at.
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from challenging his audience.
No, he doesn't.
He wants us to think and feel and come to our own conclusions.
Yeah, that's what makes Under the Skin so unique and unforgettable.
It's not just entertainment. It's an experience.
It provokes challenges. And ultimately stays with you long after the credits roll.
It's the film that gets under your skin.
Absolutely.
In the best way possible.
In the best way possible.
Yeah, it sounds like this film really takes the idea of an alien invasion story and kind of flips it on its head.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we're not talking about spaceships and lasers.
Right.
Instead, it's more of a personal, almost psychological look at an alien who's just trying to figure out what it means to be human.
Yeah, it's almost as if the invasion isn't a physical one.
I see.
But more like this sneaky infiltration of our emotions and how we see things.
Right.
And the film explores that idea with some pretty striking visuals, especially those scenes inside the alien's void.
Yeah, the void.
The review mentioned they used minimal but really effective visual effects for those scenes. I'm picturing something kind of eerie and mesmerizing at the same time. Yeah,
the reviewer describes the void as this dark, liquid-like space.
Right.
Which immediately makes me think of the unknown. And it seems like those scenes are supposed to be more abstract and surreal. Almost as if we're looking into the alien's thoughts.
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
Yeah.
Especially considering the whole theme of identity.
Right.
You know, if we think about the void as representing the alien's inner world, then her journey in the film becomes even more meaningful. It's not just about her body changing, about how her understanding of herself and her place in the universe is evolving.
And how does the contrast between the void and the realism of the film's production design play into that?
Well, you have those scenes of her driving through Scotland, interacting with regular people. And then she goes back into this dark, abstract space that's all her own. It's like these two separate realities are always bumping into each other.
Yeah, and that's where the real tension comes from.
Exactly.
When the alien has to deal with all those complicated human emotions and relationships.
The synopsis mentions that she starts to feel more vulnerable as she interacts with people.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what leads to her downfall.
That's a really good question.
Vulnerability can be a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Especially for a predator.
Especially for someone in her position.
But it's also what makes us human.
Right.
It's what allows us to connect with each other.
Exactly.
So maybe her growing vulnerability is both her strength and her weakness.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
It just shows how the film doesn't give us easy answers.
Right.
It leaves us with these questions about what it really means to be human.
So what do you think defines humanity?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Is it our physical form, our emotions, or something else altogether?
Right. Maybe it's a combination of all of them.
Maybe.
That's what I love about this film.
Yeah.
It doesn't give a simple answer.
It challenges us.
Yeah. To really think about these things.
To confront those uncomfortable truths.
Exactly.
About ourselves and the world.
That's what makes it so unique and unforgettable.
Yeah. It sounds like if you're looking for a film that will make you think.
Definitely.
Spark conversations. And stick with you long after you've seen it.
Yeah.
Under the Skin is the film for you.
It's one of those films that gets under your skin and stays there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really does sound like this Under the Skin takes this whole alien invasion thing and just turns it upside down.
Totally.
You know, it's not about spaceships and lasers.
Right.
Instead, we get this up close and personal, almost psychological look at an alien trying to understand what being human is all about.
It's almost as if the real invasion isn't like a physical one.
Okay.
But more like this sneaky kind of creeping into our feelings and perceptions, you know? And the film explores this idea with some really striking visuals, especially in those scenes inside the alien's void.
Yeah, the void.
The review mentioned that they used just a little bit of visual effects, but really effectively in those scenes. I imagine it's something kind of eerie but mesmerizing.
Well, the reviewer describes the void as this dark, liquid-like space.
Right.
And that immediately makes me think of, like, the unknown.
Yeah.
You know, it's like those scenes are meant to be more abstract, more surreal.
Yeah.
Almost like we're peeking into the alien's mind.
That's a fascinating way to think about it.
Yeah.
Especially with the whole theme of identity.
Right.
If we think of the void as like this representation of the alien's inner world, her journey becomes even more profound.
Yeah.
It's not just about the physical transformation, but also about her understanding of herself and where she fits in the universe.
And the contrast between the void and the stark realism of the film's production design just seems to highlight that disconnect between the alien and the human world she's in.
You've got those scenes of her driving through the Scottish countryside, talking to regular people.
Right.
And then she goes back to this dark, abstract space all on her own.
It's like two separate realities are constantly clashing.
Yeah, and I think that clash is where the real tension lies.
Right.
It's those moments where the alien is forced to confront all the messy complexities of human emotions and relationships.
Yeah, the synopsis mentions that she starts to feel vulnerable as she interacts more with people.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what leads to her downfall?
Oh, that's a good question.
Vulnerability can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who's supposed to be a predator.
Especially for someone like her.
Yeah, but it's also what makes us human.
Exactly.
It's how we connect on a deeper level.
Totally.
So maybe her vulnerability is both her strength and her weakness.
That's a really insightful way to look at it.
Yeah.
It just shows how the film avoids giving easy answers.
It just leaves us with more questions, right?
Right.
About what it means to be human.
What do you think defines humanity?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it our bodies?
Right.
Our emotions?
Yeah.
Or something else entirely?
Or maybe, like you said, it's all those things together.
Yeah, that's what I love about this film.
Yeah.
It doesn't just give you one answer.
It doesn't tell you what to think.
It really challenges us to think about these big ideas.
Exactly.
And face the hard truths about ourselves in the world.
It makes you think.
Yeah.
It challenges you.
Right.
And it stays with you.
So if you're looking for a film that will challenge your expectations, start conversations, and stick with you long after you've seen it.
Under the Skin is the film for you.
It really gets under your skin.
It does.
And stays with you.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a fascinating look
at
Under the Skin.
I totally agree.
I'm definitely adding it to my watch list.
It's a must-see.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.